The galaxy believed Earth was quiet, silent, and weak. To the Galactic Council, humans were nothing more than a small species that had appeared late among the stars. They had no ancient empires, no great fleets known to the wider galaxy. Earth had sent no envoys, no armies, no loud claims. It was easy for the Council to laugh and dismiss them. Yet some whispered in the dark halls of power that silence was not weakness. It was patience, and patience was far more dangerous. In the council chamber, filled with lights and voices from 100 worlds, alien delegates argued over trade, borders, and wars. But when the word Earth came up, laughter rolled across the room. They called it a backwater, a world hiding behind its small moon and quiet sun. A delegate from the Vexari Empire mocked, "Humans will never dare to raise their heads. They have no voice, no fleet, no courage." And many agreed, but one older delegate, her scales dull with age, only shook her head and muttered, "Do not mistake silence for weakness." Few heard her warning. Across the stars, small rumors traveled between captains and smugglers. Strange signals, faint but sharp, came from the edge of Terran space. Patrol ships that wandered too close, sometimes failed to report back. Pirates, some said, system storms. Others replied, no one wanted to believe that humans had teeth. But there was something unsettling about the empty transmissions, something that made even veteran captains uneasy. On the surface of Earth, no alien eyes could see what truly happened. Deep underground and hidden bases, humans worked day and night. Ships slept under oceans. Engines hummed inside the hollowed crust of the moon. Factories built weapons in silence, guarded by layers of secrecy. Every step was careful, deliberate, unseen. For decades, Earth had listened, learning everything about its neighbors while showing nothing of its own strength. Among the council worlds, arrogance was easy. They showed. Their fleets proudly paraded their dreadnoughts like banners. They believed the loudest voice was the strongest. But Earth was different. Earth spoke only in whispers. Humans had watched history unfold among the stars, empires rising and falling, wars that burned across systems. They learned the mistakes of others. They decided to wait, to watch, and to prepare. But silence could not last forever. One council, scout ship, a sleek vessel belonging to the Kalor Dominion, broke protocol and entered Terran space. Its captain expected to return with maps, scans, and proof of weakness. Instead, the ship never returned. Only a broken distress signal flickered once before vanishing. Council leaders blamed engine failure, but quiet fear touched their hearts. A ship disappearing inside Terran borders was not a good sign. In secret meetings, high-ranking admirals argued. Some said humans had destroyed the scout ship. Others swore it was an accident. The council wanted to believe the second answer. It was easier to think of Earth as harmless. Still, doubt grew. What if the humans were not what they seemed? What if silence was hiding a storm? Meanwhile, in human command centers deep under the oceans, officers stood over glowing screens. Their faces were calm, their voices steady. The captured scout ship had been dismantled in silence. Every circuit studied, every engine part examined. The galaxy did not know that humanity's silence was filled with action. They were not waiting because they were weak. They were waiting because they were building something greater than the galaxy had ever seen. The council chamber grew restless in the following months. Reports of missing vessels increased, yet no proof ever reached them. They began to send larger patrols near Earth, testing the borders. Each time they pushed, they felt only emptiness, as if Earth was still quiet, still passive, but that emptiness was not peace. It was the deep breath before thunder, the calm before a storm. Aliens far from the council, explorers and traders, began to whisper again. They spoke of shadows moving in the void, of faint energy readings far too strong for a single ship. They said they had seen the stars themselves, flicker as if something enormous passed between them. But whenever they tried to follow, nothing remained. Only silence. Back on Earth, in dark halls filled with screens and voices, humanity continued its secret work. They had not shown their strength yet, not because they could not, but because the right moment had not come. Earth's leaders knew that once the veil was lifted, once the truth was revealed, The galaxy would never be the same again. The silence of Earth was not weakness. It was the shadow of something vast, waiting to awaken. The Galactic Council laughed still, but their laughter was starting to sound. Nervous, they told themselves that humans were nothing, yet in the corners of their minds unease grew. Somewhere out there in the quiet void beyond their borders, Earth was listening, Earth was watching, and Earth was waiting. Would the silence continue, or would it one day break into a sound the galaxy would never forget? No one could answer, but whispers turned into rumors, and rumors turned into fear. The name Earth was no longer a joke spoken in council halls. It was becoming a shadow that stretched across the stars. And though the galaxy did not yet know it, the silence of Earth was almost over. The first echoes of something greater were already moving in the dark. Soon, the quiet world they had mocked would show its true face, and when it did, the galaxy would remember forever the day Earth stopped being silent. The Galactic Council chamber was always full of noise. Hundreds of voices echoed across the marble floor, each belonging to a different species. Different colors, different shapes, different ways of thinking, yet all arguing in the same vast hall. They argued about trade, about borders, about rivalries, but now a new name was spreading among them, a name that twisted their debates into whispers. Earth. The Vexari delegate, tall and proud, pounded his clawed hand on the table. Humans are nothing, he declared. They hide on their small blue world like frightened hatchlings. If a single Kalor scout ship vanished near their system, it was an accident, nothing more. Laughter rose from many corners of the chamber, but not all were laughing. A representative of the Myric Union, her insect-like mandibles clicking softly, leaned forward and spoke with quiet unease. And what if it was not an accident? What if the humans destroyed that ship? What if they are not as weak as we think? Her words were met with scoffs, but a ripple of silence also moved across the chamber. Some did not want to believe her, but some could not ignore the possibility. Rumors had begun to drift in from the edges of council space. Merchant captains whispered of strange signals near Terran borders, signals sharp and precise. Unlike the random noise of empty systems, explorers claimed to have seen shadows moving in the void, enormous shapes that blocked starlight for only a moment before vanishing. None of these stories could be proven, but the fact they existed was enough to plant seeds of fear. The Eldrin envoy, with his smooth silver skin, rose from his seat and let his calm voice carry across the chamber. "We forget history too quickly," he said. "There have been species before who pretended to be weak until they were ready. The Dravolans did this centuries ago, and when they struck, they shattered two empires. Is it not possible Earth has chosen the same path?" The council stirred uneasily. Some shouted back that Earth had no colonies, no fleets, no ancient technology. They reminded each other that humans had only reached the stars a short time ago. Others whispered that this was exactly why they should be cautious, for species that moved quickly often became dangerous faster than anyone expected. Behind closed doors, the whispers were louder. Admirals spoke to their governments in secret messages. They reported increasing numbers of missing ships near human space. They reported strange energy spikes, brief but powerful, that their sensors had picked up before vanishing. It was as if something immense had stirred and then hidden again. The Kalor Dominion, whose scout ship had gone missing, was the loudest. In calling for answers, their warlords demanded proof. Some even demanded punishment against Earth. But without evidence, the council refused. They told the Kalors that fear was clouding their judgment. Yet, privately, even those who mocked them began to wonder. In the shadowed back rows of the chamber sat the old delegate of the Serathi. Her people had lived through wars that erased whole civilizations. Her eyes, dark and tired, watched the other delegates laugh and argue. At last she spoke, her voice cracked but steady. "I have seen this before," she said. "A quiet world, underestimated, until the day its silence ended in fire. You all laugh because you do not want to believe it. But remember my words. Earth's silence is not peace. It is a mask. And when it falls, you will not be ready." Her warning was ignored by most, yet the few who listened felt a cold chill in their bones. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, traders and mercenaries continued to spread tales. A convoy swore they saw light bend strangely near the Terran border, as though something vast had cloaked itself. Another merchant spoke of an entire asteroid belt vanishing from his charts, as though ships larger than mountains had passed through and left only shadows. None of it could be proven, but none of it could be dismissed either. Tension grew. The council tried to keep order, tried to distract itself with old rivalries, but the whispers of Earth kept returning, a shadow behind every conversation, a question behind every plan. What if the humans were not weak? What if they were only waiting? And deep beneath Earth's oceans and mountains, humans worked without pause. They were not blind to the galaxy's laughter. They had heard every insult, every mockery, and they had smiled in silence. They knew the aliens thought them cowards, but they also knew something the galaxy did not. Silence was their shield, and behind it they had been building something the stars themselves would fear. Back in the council chamber, the Vexari delegate shouted again, his voice filled with anger. I will not waste more time on rumors. If Earth wishes to stay silent, let them. We have more important matters than chasing shadows. Yet even as he spoke, even as laughter rose once more, there was unease in his eyes, a flicker of doubt he could not hide. The galaxy had mocked Earth for too long, but now little by little that mockery was turning into something else. They would not admit it aloud, not yet, but fear had begun to take root, and in the silence of Earth, that fear would only grow, until the day the galaxy's laughter died, and humanity's voice thundered across the stars. The Kalor Dominion was not known for patience. Their warlords thrived on shows of strength. To them, fear was a weapon sharper than any blade, and so when their scout ship vanished in Terran space, they did not sit quietly. They sent another vessel larger, faster, armed with weapons meant to remind the galaxy of their dominance. The cruiser, called the Bloodfang, was no ordinary ship. It carried weapons capable of reducing moons to rubble. Its hull was layered with armor thick enough to endure the beams of lesser fleets. The captain, Lord Veyrak, was arrogant, a warrior who believed no prey could ever hide from his hunt. As the cruiser crossed into Terran space, he laughed. These humans hide in silence because they are weak. Tonight I will drag their weakness into the light. The Bloodfang moved past Neptune's orbit, scanning the void with powerful sensors. Nothing, only silence. Veyrak smirked and leaned back in his command throne. As I thought, he muttered. The galaxy has been haunted by children's tales. There is nothing here. His crew nodded, eager to believe their captain. But then something changed. The sensors began to flicker, faint static spreading across their screens. At first, the crew thought it was interference, a natural anomaly. But the static grew sharper, stronger, deliberate, as if someone, or something, was watching them. Veyrak snarled. Trace it. Find the source. The crew worked furiously, their claws moving over glowing controls. Finally, one officer spoke with trembling words. Lord, the signal. It is coming from behind us. The captain whipped his head around. The starfield outside looked normal, empty. But then the stars blinked, not one or two, but an entire section of the sky seemed to vanish for a second, swallowed by darkness. A shadow larger than anything they had ever seen slid silently through the void. Raise shields, Veyrak roared, but it was already too late. The shadow came alive. A vast outline revealed itself, sleek, black, and endless. Its hull was darker than space itself, absorbing the light around it. No insignia, no lights, no sound, only the cold presence of something built to destroy. A single beam of blue light erupted from its hidden cannons, striking the Bloodfang with surgical precision. Shields shattered instantly, armor peeled away like paper. Veyrak screamed orders. Return. Fire. Fire everything. The Bloodfang's weapons flared, torpedoes and beams shot into the void. But the shadow moved like water, shifting effortlessly, every strike missing. It did not fight like a fleet ship. It fought like a predator. Calm, silent, and merciless. The crew felt it in their bones. This was not just a warship, it was something more. Something beyond their understanding. In less than a minute, The Bloodfang's engines were gone, its weapons silenced, its proud hull broken and drifting. The mighty Kalor cruiser, symbol of arrogance and power, had been reduced to a lifeless shell. Only one thing was spared, a small distress beacon was allowed to escape. It carried no words, only a single image burned into its memory core, the faint outline of the dark shadow that had destroyed them, a shape too massive to be anything but human-made. The beacon reached. The Kalor Dominion days later, the warlords howled with rage, smashing their fists against stone tables. Their fleets gathered, demanding war against Earth. They wanted revenge. They wanted blood. But the Council demanded caution. They replayed the signal again and again, examining the ghostly image of the shadow. Some said it was a trick. Others said no alien ship in the galaxy matched its size or speed. The old Sarathi delegate whispered, "It is the first warning the silence of Earth is ending." Fear spread like fire. If humans had built a ship capable of destroying the Bloodfang so easily, what else were they hiding? Was there only one shadow, or were there more waiting in the dark? The Council's debates turned violent. Some wanted to strike Earth at once, others wanted to send envoys, but no one could deny it now. The humans were no longer just a silent rumor. They had drawn blood across the galaxy. Captains whispered of the shadow ship. They called it many names. The Silent Blade, the Phantom, the Ghost of Terra. No matter the name, the story was the same. A single human warship had erased a cruiser in less than a minute, and then vanished without a trace. Meanwhile, on Earth, deep in their hidden command centers, human officers watched the captured images of the Bloodfang. They studied every move, every weapon. They had not revealed their full strength. Far from it. What the galaxy had seen was only the beginning, a single spark. The Council was right about one thing. It was a warning. The galaxy had mocked Earth, laughed at their silence, called them weak. Now they had tasted the truth, and the taste was fear. The silence of Earth was cracking, and the sound that would follow would not be laughter. It would be thunder. It would be war. It would be the voice of humanity rising at last. The destruction of the Kalor cruiser shook the Galactic Council like an earthquake. For centuries, the Council had ruled by balance. Every empire was arrogant, but none dared to rise too far above the others. It kept the peace, fragile but stable. Now that peace began to crumble. The Kalor Dominion roared for war. Their warlords demanded a full strike against Earth. They claimed honor demanded blood for blood. If humans are bold enough to strike the Bloodfang, bellowed Lord Kraish, his voice like thunder across the chamber, then they are bold enough to strike again. If we wait, they will grow stronger. The Dominion will not wait. The Myric Union hissed in reply, their insectoid mandibles clacking in disapproval. And risk waking an enemy we do not understand. The footage shows a shadow ship unlike anything we know. Who can say how many of these vessels exist? Who can say what else Earth hides? Do you Kalors wish to drag us all into a war we may not win? Voices rose, accusations flew. What had once been laughter over Earth's supposed weakness now became anger, fear, and paranoia. The Eldrin delegates, calm as ever, tried to speak reason. We cannot fight shadows. If humanity has hidden power, then we must know its limits before we act. We suggest restraint until more evidence is gathered. But restraint was not in the hearts of the Kalors, nor in many others who saw Earth as a threat. Fleets began to mobilize in secret. Weapons that had long been kept in storage were awakened. What should have united the galaxy against one unknown enemy instead turned the Council against itself. Old rivalries reopened like scars torn fresh. Alliances broke under the weight of fear. Meanwhile, traitors and spies poured more fuel onto the fire. They carried news of strange movements at the edge of Terran space. Systems went dark with no explanation. Asteroid colonies sent final messages before falling silent forever. It seemed the closer one drifted toward Earth's reach, the less likely one was to return. The whispers grew. The humans are testing their weapons. The humans are hunting in silence. In the chamber, suspicion twisted into violence. On the 41st day after the Bloodfang's destruction, a Kalor envoy struck a Myric representative across the face. Guards rushed in, weapons drawn. It was the first time blood had spilled inside the council itself in nearly 100 years. The chamber descended into chaos, voices screaming, fists pounding, threats hurled across the room. The Sarathi elder, old and weary, rose from her seat with trembling hands, her voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "Do you not see, fools? It is already too late. We are broken. And the humans have not even raised their voices yet. We tear ourselves apart while they wait in silence, and when they move, none of us will be ready." Her words silenced the chamber for only a moment, then came more shouts, more divisions. The unity of the council was shattered, beyond the council's reach. The galaxy felt the tension like a storm before lightning. Civilian. Worlds whispered of war, fear spread like disease. Mothers told their children to stay close. Captains prayed before sending their ships to patrol. Everyone could feel it. The balance had shifted, and something vast was coming, and deep within Earth's hidden bastions, the truth was unfolding. In the caverns carved beneath mountains, in the shipyards cloaked by oceans, humanity's fleets were no longer sleeping. Engines thundered to life. Silent dreadnoughts, built for decades in secret, rose from their cradles. Carriers prepared, fighter swarms. Cruisers activated stealth systems that made them vanish against the stars. Humanity had not been silent because it was weak, and it had been silent because it was waiting for the galaxy to collapse under its own arrogance. The Council, blind with fear, gave them the perfect moment. While empires argued, humanity prepared. While warlords threatened, humanity sharpened. Its blades, for years they had studied every species, every ship, every strategy. The galaxy's history was their classroom, its mistakes their lessons, its arrogance their fuel. In a command center buried beneath the Atlantic, human admirals stood around a glowing table. Holographic stars lit the air above them. One of them, Admiral Reyes, leaned forward. "The Council is divided. The Kalers prepare for war, the Mirek demand restraint, the Eldrins hesitate. They will never stand together again. The time of silence is nearly over." Another admiral nodded, his voice heavy but certain. "Then the galaxy will hear us. They will hear the voice they mocked, and it will be the sound of engines, the sound of war." Above Earth, in orbit, shadows stirred. Great black shapes moved against the void, invisible to alien eyes. Each was larger than the Blood Fang, each bristled with weapons hidden from the galaxy's knowledge. They waited, not for arrogance, not for pride, but for the moment when the galaxy was most fractured, most vulnerable. Back in the council chamber, arguments turned into threats of open war. The Kalors swore they would strike Earth with or without support. The Mirek prepared to defend themselves from Kalors more than humans. The Eldrins tried to speak reason but were drowned out. Every empire turned inward, preparing for conflict. They thought humanity was the threat dividing them, but they did not realize the truth. Humanity had no need to divide them. They were doing it to themselves. The silence of Earth remained, but it was no longer the silence of hiding. It was the silence of a blade being drawn, unseen, unheard, until the moment it struck. The galaxy's alliance was broken, and in that brokenness, the stage was set. Soon, the first shadow of the Armada would rise from the dark, and the galaxy, too busy tearing itself apart, would see the truth too late. The galaxy had seen wars before, but never like this. Empires had fought over resources, over borders, over pride, but there was always balance, always someone strong enough to stop another from going too far. Now that balance was gone, the council was fractured, the Kalors threatened war, the Mirek hissed warnings, and the Eldrins whispered for peace no one wanted to hear. In the cracks of this chaos, rumors of Earth grew louder. It began with explorers at the rim of Terran space. Their transmissions were scattered, frightened, and cut short. A merchant convoy reported strange lights blinking in perfect patterns across the stars. It was not natural, the captain swore. It was formation, the kind only fleets use. His crew said they saw shadows gliding through the void. Vast shapes that blocked starlight as if entire mountains moved between planets. When they turned to follow, the shadows vanished as though the void itself had swallowed them. Another tale came from a scout patrol. They claimed to have detected hundreds of warp signatures igniting at once, the energy so massive it rippled through nearby systems. For 3 days, their sensors recorded aftershocks. Each time the recordings were reviewed in the council, alien scientists shook their heads. Some said the data was corrupted. Some said it was a trick. But none could explain the raw power hidden in those signals. Whispers turned into fear, fear into stories, and stories into legend. The Terrans are moving. Voices whispered in council corridors. They are gathering something vast. Others scoffed, saying humanity had no colonies, no shipyards, no great foundries. How could they possibly build fleets of that scale? But the rumors did not die, they multiplied. A Myrick admiral stood before her Union Council, her mandibles clicking in unease. "I have seen the scans myself," she said. "Warp trails so large they distort entire charts. Ships the size of cities moving in silence, and not just one or two, but hundreds, perhaps thousands. If this is true, then Earth is no child. It is a storm." The Kalors, arrogant as always, spat at such claims. "Lies to frighten us," they snarled. "No world without colonies could amass such fleets. We will burn Earth and all its whispers." Yet even their admirals secretly reviewed the recordings late at night, staring at the flickering data, wondering if the shadows were real. The Eldrans, silent watchers of history, spoke less, but listened more. They remembered the Dravalons, who once hid fleets in the void until they crushed 2 empires. They remembered the Orak, who cloaked weapons beneath oceans until the day they turned their seas into fire. History had seen silence before, and silence was never safe. Meanwhile, out in the uncharted dark, humanity's work reached its peak. In shipyards hidden beneath oceans, entire carriers rose like leviathans. In hollowed moons, dreadnoughts the size of mountains activated their engines. Fighter wings poured from secret caverns, training in silence. Their ships did not shine with banners or colors. They were black, shadowed, designed to vanish into the void. They were not meant for display. They were meant for war. Admiral Reyes stood in the command chamber beneath the Atlantic, watching as holographic stars lit the room. "Our Armada is ready," he said quietly. The galaxy does not believe. They still argue, they still laugh, but soon they will see. His second-in-command, a woman with cold eyes and steady hands, nodded. When they see Admiral, it will be too late for them to prepare. Above Earth, in the silence of orbit, shadows stirred. Ships slid out of stealth, just long enough for human engineers to inspect their formation. For a heartbeat. Anyone watching the solar system would have seen a fleet larger than any in history. Carriers, destroyers, cruisers, and dreadnoughts aligned in perfect unity. Engines burned with quiet thunder. Then, as quickly as they appeared, they vanished again into cloaked silence. But the galaxy had glimpsed enough. Near the edges of Terran borders, a group of Kalor scouts reported seeing an entire starfield bend, as though something massive blocked the light. Their panicked reports came through the council feeds. "They're not ships, they're worlds," one scout screamed before the transmission ended. When the recording replayed, silence filled the chamber. Even the Kalors could not mock what they saw. Civilian worlds far from the council began to whisper of the Armada. They did not call it a rumor anymore. They called it by name. The shadows. Of Earth they spoke of it in fear. Mothers telling children to stay close. Captains refusing to sail near Terran space. Fear spread faster than fact. And in that fear the council crumbled further. Some demanded immediate strikes, others begged for peace. But all of them knew one thing. The humans were no longer a distant silence, they were a presence, a shadow waiting. The Sarathi elder whispered again, her tired voice cutting through the chamber. "We will not face 1 ship or 10. We will face an Armada, the greatest the stars have ever seen. And when it arrives, your laughter will be the first sound it destroys." Her words were ignored by some, but in their hearts, even the proudest warlords knew she spoke truth. The galaxy had mocked Earth, but now, for the first time, it trembled. For the shadows of humanity's Armada had already begun to move, and soon the silence of Earth would break with a thunder that would shake every star. The galaxy had lived on rumors for too long. Whispers of shadows, stories of missing ships, and half-seen warping trails had filled the council halls with fear. But still many clung to denial. They told themselves humans could not possibly build what the rumors claimed. They told themselves silence was weakness. They told themselves lies that ended the day the sky itself opened. It began quietly, as all great storms do. The council gathered as usual, bickering over whether to confront Earth or to keep waiting. Delegates shouted, voices overlapping, until suddenly every communicator in the chamber flickered to life. The walls themselves vibrated with a single signal, clear and deliberate. A human voice spoke, calm, steady, and unmistakable. You wanted silence. You mocked silence. Now hear us. The chamber froze. The signal carried not just words but images. Holographic stars filled the air, and one by one they were swallowed by massive black shapes. The image was clear enough to make every alien present shiver. These were not rumors, not shadows, but ships. Ships beyond counting. Each one sleek, black, bristling with hidden weapons. Each one moving with precision that no alien fleet had ever achieved. The voice continued. For decades you laughed at Earth, you called us weak. You thought silence was fear. It was not fear, it was preparation. And now, the Armada stands. Even as the words echoed across the chamber, far from the Council's walls, the Armada revealed itself for real. In the blackness beyond Jupiter's orbit, cloaked engines roared to life. Thousands of warships ignited their drives in perfect formation. From dreadnoughts the size of small moons to carriers that held entire cities within their hulls. From cruisers sharper than blades to stealth ships that blurred against the void, humanity's fleet stretched farther than sensors could measure. Alien scouts watching from the edge of Terran space sent frantic transmissions. It is not one fleet, they cried. It is thousands, tens of thousands. They cover the void, like stars themselves. Their voices cracked with terror before their signals were cut short. In the council chamber, pandemonium broke out. Some delegates screamed for immediate surrender, others shouted for war. Many simply sat frozen in silence, unable to comprehend what they had seen. The Kalors, proud even in fear, roared that they would burn Earth regardless. But their words rang hollow, for everyone had seen the truth. Earth had not built a fleet. Earth had built a storm. Above Earth, the Armada shifted. Dreadnoughts aligned into phalanxes. Carriers opened their bays and released swarms of fighters that danced like sparks in the void. The ships did not move with chaos. They moved like one body, one will, a unity the galaxy had never achieved. Admiral Reyes stood at the command nexus. Beneath the Atlantic, his eyes locked on the feeds pouring in from orbit. Let them see, he said, his voice steady. Let them see what silence has hidden. We do not seek conquest, but we will never kneel. His officers nodded, their faces hard but calm. They knew the galaxy was watching. On distant worlds, alien civilians watched the broadcasts in horror. Massive human warships appeared in their skies as holograms spread across the network. Entire families wept, praying their governments would not provoke Earth. Children clutched their parents, asking what would happen if the Armada turned its eyes toward them, but humanity had not spoken with cruelty. Their message was not of domination, it was of warning. A voice spread alongside the images of the Armada, repeating again and again, "We will not conquer. We will not kneel. Leave Earth in peace, or face the storm." Still, fear outweighed reason. In the Kalor Dominion, warlords screamed for blood. They launched fleets in defiance, sending hundreds of ships to challenge the Terran Armada. In their arrogance, they believed numbers could crush even the shadows of Earth. They were wrong. The first clash came in the cold void near the edge of Terran space. The Kalor fleet surged forward, banners blazing, engines roaring. They fired their weapons in storms of light, the void filled with energy beams and torpedoes. But the Armada did not falter. Human dreadnoughts advanced like mountains in motion. Absorbing the Kalor fire without slowing, stealth cruisers appeared from nowhere, striking at the enemy's flanks before vanishing again. Fighter swarms cut through Kalor formations with surgical precision. Within minutes, entire Kalor squadrons were erased. Ships that had boasted invincibility were reduced to drifting wreckage. The galaxy watched in horror as the battle feeds streamed across every world. The Kalors, once feared as conquerors, were broken in less than an hour. their proud fleets scattered, their survivors begging for retreat. And through it all, the human armada moved as though it were a single machine, not thousands of ships, but one vast and terrible presence. The council fell into silence. No one laughed now, no one mocked. They had seen the truth. They had seen power beyond anything in their history, and they understood. Earth had chosen silence, not because it was weak, but because it had been building a force the galaxy could not match. Back in the command chamber, Admiral Reyes spoke softly, though his words carried across the stars. The time of silence is over. The galaxy will remember this day, not because we sought war, but because we showed the truth. Humanity stands. And above him, in the endless dark, the Armada burned like a second constellation, each ship a star of war, a promise, a warning, a future the galaxy could no longer escape. The silence had ended. Humanity had revealed its might, and the galaxy trembled. The galaxy had always believed in its own strength. Every empire thought itself eternal. Every fleet thought itself unmatched, but when the human armada tore through the Kalor Dominion's fleets like paper, that belief shattered. In a single day, the Kalors went from feared predators to broken prey. Their warlords who had roared for blood now whispered for retreat. Their fleets, once symbols of terror, were nothing more than burning wreckage drifting in the void. The council chamber was silent when the first reports arrived. Not silent in peace, but silent in horror. Delegates sat frozen as battle feeds flickered across the walls. They watched dreadnoughts the size of moons crush Kalor ships beneath endless barrages. They watched swarms of Terran fighters split enemy formations with flawless precision. They watched stealth cruisers appear out of nothingness, strike like knives, then vanish again into the dark. No alien fleet had ever moved with such unity, such speed, such deadly grace. One Myrick delegate, his mandibles trembling, whispered words no one wanted to say aloud. They fight like one mind. His voice cracked. They fight like a single creature made of metal and fire. And in that whisper, the truth settled over the chamber. Humanity was not another rival empire. Humanity was something new, something the galaxy had never seen before, but pride is a hard thing to kill. The Kalors may have been shattered, but others still clung to arrogance. The Drawl Confederacy, old and bitter, declared that humanity's armada was an illusion. They cannot sustain such power, they sneered. One victory does not decide the stars. They launched their own fleet of 2,000 ships, a force that had cowed smaller species for centuries. They lasted less than a night. The human armada did not rush into the battle. It moved with calm precision. Dreadnoughts spread wide, cutting off escape routes. Carriers released fighters in waves that looked like storms of starlight. The Drawl fought bravely, but bravery could not stop inevitability. In hours, their proud fleet was reduced to silence, their channels filled only with the last cries of broken captains. The galaxy now understood. There was no illusion. The Armada was real, and it was unstoppable. Across the stars, panic spread like fire. Civilian worlds rioted, demanding answers, demanding protection from governments too afraid to move. Some planets declared neutrality, swearing they would never again cross humanity's path. Others fell into despair, knowing that neutrality meant nothing if the Armada turned its gaze toward them. Inside the council, fear turned to chaos. The Kalors shouted for vengeance, but had no fleets left to fight. The Drawl screamed for allies, but found none willing to join their ruin. The Myrick and the Eldrins begged for peace, urging the council to speak to Earth before it was too late. But no one listened. Pride, fear, and confusion drowned reason. And then came the message. Across every channel, every frequency, every world, a transmission appeared. The face of a human commander filled the screens. Admiral Reyes. His eyes were steady, his voice firm. We did not come to conquer. We did not come to enslave. But we will not kneel. We will not bow to empires that mock and threaten us. You brought fleets to our borders. You tested our silence, and now you have seen the price of arrogance. His words carried like thunder. Worlds that had never seen Earth's sun trembled at the sound. The Armada is not here to destroy, but To protect, if you seek war, we will answer. If you seek peace, then let Earth be. The choice is yours, the future is yours, but remember, silence is over. In that moment, the Council realized the truth. Humanity had no need to conquer. The Armada itself was enough. Its presence reshaped the galaxy without firing another shot. Entire empires shifted their policies overnight. Factions that once fought bitterly now united under one shared fear. Not each other, but humanity. But it was too late to save the old order. The Council itself fractured beyond repair. The Kalors withdrew in shame, their pride broken. The Drawls. Power was shattered. The Myrick and the Eldrins tried desperately to rebuild unity. But no one trusted the Council anymore. Alliances crumbled, promises dissolved. The galaxy no longer had balance. Humanity had become the balance. In dark corners, alien leaders whispered of resistance, of secret plans to unite against Earth. But those whispers were empty. For every scout they sent to watch Terran space returned with the same story. Ships. Endless ships, formations so vast they blotted out stars. Engines so powerful they made entire systems tremble. Humanity did not need to conquer. The Armada was enough to break the will of any who thought to rise. On Earth, Admiral Reyes stood, in the command nexus, listening to the reports of shattered empires. His voice was calm as he spoke to his officers. The galaxy has seen us, they have feared us, now they must understand us. We will not be tyrants, but we will never again be prey. Above him, in the vast black sky, the Armada drifted in silence. Thousands of warships holding position like a wall of steel and shadow. They did not fire, they did not advance, they simply waited. And that waiting was more terrifying than any battle, for the galaxy had learned that the Armada did not need to move to win. Its very existence had shattered empires. Its silence had become louder than any roar. The Council was broken, the galaxy was trembling, and Earth, once mocked as weak, now stood as the power that decided the fate of the stars. The galaxy had changed forever. The old balance of power was gone. Empires that once ruled with fear now trembled in silence. Alliances that had endured for centuries cracked apart like glass. At the center of this storm stood Earth, the world that everyone had mocked, the world that had kept quiet, the world whose silence had become the shadow of an Armada unlike anything the stars had ever seen. In the council chamber, the delegates no longer laughed. They no longer mocked. They sat in silence, staring at the last transmissions from the Kalor and Drawl fleets, burning wreckage drifting in the void, their proud warlords begging for retreat. The chamber, once filled with arrogant voices, now echoed with nothing but fear. No one wanted to speak first. No one wanted to be the next to draw humanity's gaze. Then the signal came again, the same human voice, calm and steady. Admiral Reyes appeared across every world, every screen, every vessel. His image stood taller than any emperor or warlord, not because of his power alone, but because behind him, the galaxy could see the shadows of thousands of ships. This is not conquest, his voice rang. This is not empire. Earth will not enslave. Earth will not expand by force. But know this. We will not kneel. We will not bow. And we will not forget those who mocked us in silence. His words spread like fire. Civilian worlds that had lived in terror for centuries listened and wept. For the first time, there was something greater than their warlords, greater than their oppressors. Entire populations whispered hope. Others whispered fear, and in that mix of hope and fear a new order was born. The Kalors, broken and bleeding, signed a desperate pact declaring they would never again cross into Terran space. The Drawl, humiliated beyond measure, retreated into their core worlds, their fleets crippled. The Myrick and Eldrins, wiser than most, reached out with messages of peace, hoping to build a fragile bridge before it was too late. They understood what others did not. The Armada had the strength to crush, but Earth's choice to show restraint was a warning even sharper than destruction. On the civilian worlds, children began to learn a new lesson in their schools. Not the names of the old empires, not the history of ancient battles, but a single phrase that spread faster than any law: do not anger Earth. That phrase passed from mouth to mouth, from world to world, and soon it became the foundation of a galaxy reshaped. In the shadows, of course, not everyone accepted. This new order, warlords plotted jealous of the power Earth now held. Secret councils whispered of alliances to resist humanity. But those whispers carried no strength, for every time they looked at the feeds, they saw the Armada hanging in silence above Earth, a storm waiting to fall. The idea of uniting against humanity died before it could be born, because fear had already done the work. Back on Earth, Admiral Reyes stood with his officers in the Command Nexus. The hollow map of the galaxy spread before them. Stars glimmered, some marked with red, some with blue, each a reminder of the worlds that now watched humanity with cautious eyes. "We have changed the galaxy," one officer said quietly. "We have ended the council, broken the old empires, and now every world waits for our word." Reyes looked at the map, his jaw set. "We did not build the Armada to rule. We built it to survive, to protect, to make sure humanity would never again be mocked, never again be prey. We will not become the tyrants they feared, but we will make sure they never forget what silence truly meant." Above them, in the endless black, the Armada hovered in perfect formation. Thousands of ships holding position around Earth like a steel crown. They did not fire, they did not invade, they simply existed, and their existence was enough to reshape the stars. On distant worlds, alien children pointed at the night sky and whispered about the humans. Some whispered fear, others whispered awe. But no one whispered mockery anymore. That time was over. Humanity had spoken, not with words alone, but with the weight of an armada that covered the heavens. The Sarathi elder, her voice frail but sharp, spoke her final words in the council chamber before she returned to her homeworld. "You thought silence was weakness," she said. "You thought laughter was strength. Now you know. Silence was the storm before thunder, and thunder has come. The galaxy will never forget." And so the galaxy entered a new age. An age where Earth stood as the unshaken center. An age where silence had ended, replaced by the quiet hum of engines. Vast enough to shake suns, humanity did not rule with chains nor with conquest. Humanity ruled with presence, with the knowledge that if anyone dared challenge them, the Armada would move. And when it moved, nothing would remain. For now, the Armada hovered in silence, a promise in the dark, a warning written across the stars. The galaxy understood at last. Earth was no longer the quiet world they mocked. Earth was the power that decided their future. And though humanity had promised not to conquer, every empire knew the truth. The galaxy itself now belonged to the shadow of Earth. The silence was over. The new order had begun.